Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Intergenerational Solidarity Series, a podcast brought to you by Civic Voice, Inuka Kenya Nisisi, and The Elephant. I'm Darius Okola, here with episode 7 about a national dissent collectively known as the Gen Z movement. Joining me to discuss this is Senior Counsel, a polished human rights activist, and a seasoned politician, Honorable Martha Karua. Karibu.
Asante sana.
So you were fairly young when you started your activism. What triggered it?
I must say that it's the repression of the time, needs of the time. The KANU regime had this voracious appetite to gobble up all institutions, independent organizations. They had just affiliated KOTU, the Workers' Union. They affiliated the largest women's organization, Maendeleo ya Wanawake, and it became KANU Maendeleo ya Wanawake. And then President Moi makes a surprise announcement in a public function that he will now move to affiliate the Law Society. And we said, no, not under our watch. As young lawyers, we got together and we started agitating. And when around that time, the chair of the Law Society then had accepted a public appointment to the board of the Consolidated Bank. It's not really a big deal, but in a repressive regime, it's a big deal because the Law Society is supposed to assist the society in matters law, human rights, administration of justice. Therefore, their work will entail calling out the regime of the day on excesses, on abuse of human rights, governance issues, corruption, and administration of justice. So we thought that is causing up too much. And we started telling our leadership, you cannot be in bed with the government and be able to do your duties. So that's how my activism started. And then I realized that you do not practice law in a vacuum, or any profession for that matter. It's within the socio-economic and political context. And it dawned on me that the politics of the day affect the environment we work in. Because we saw the regime of the day start interfering with our caucus meetings as young lawyers. We'd go to the professional center where the Law Society was housed to hold our meetings to strategize on how to pressure our leadership to delink from, the state. And they would bring lorries with tear gas and riot police. And we are just a small group of young lawyers, under 30 or just about 30. So we realized that until we need to focus on governance in our country, fighting excesses of the government, and seeking expanded civic space. So from activism, regarding my profession, the Law Society, it's spilled over now to national activism because the two are interlinked. You cannot avoid politics of the day because it affects your environment.
Now that you think about it, we've had, that's throughout the 80s, then we went into the 90s, the agitation, the 2000s. We're about 4 decades in.
Yeah.
And then we had these young people going to the streets last year, one of the most significant recent political events.
Yeah.
But even amidst that agitation, one of salient issues that stood out is one of your colleagues and friends, Dr. Besigye, being picked off from the streets, which is similar to what happened to a lot of young people. And this is not new. Are we, in a sense, in a space of regression, sort of back and forth again and again?
Sadly, yes. We are seeing a state of serious regression of democracy respect for rule of law and human rights. How can a state be rogue and adopt abduction as a means? And we are now in the case of Besigye talking about two states, Kenya and Uganda, whose constitutions have similar clauses on due process and whose Bill of Rights resemble each other closely. Two states that are member states of the East African community, whose one of the foundational principles is the rule of law principle, which entails due process. Two states that chose also to ignore international law. When you want to pursue your national across the border, you have to make a formal request to the minister, to the relevant minister of the country. In that case, Uganda should have come and made a request to the Attorney General, because there is no Minister of Justice in Kenya. And then that minister would have caused the arrest, not abduction, proper arrest. And then a formal application before a court of law, due process, requesting abduction, in which case Besigye would have had the right to oppose or accept the extradition, and then the court would issue an order. In other words, people must know that Kenyan law, the Extradition Act, requires that the court must issue an order authorizing extradition. For Kenya and Uganda to fail to observe that, and in this case for Kenya to allow abduction and facilitate abduction on its soil, and rendition. Rendition is forcibly taking someone out without the authorization of the court. Kenya behaved and became a rogue state. So together with Uganda, two rogue states facilitating renditioning of Dr. Kizza Besigye and his friend Obed Lutale, and their detention, their subsequent detention in the military cells, and later prosecution before a military court. And I would like Kenyans to know and people to know that actually as they passed through the border, the passports of both Besigye and Lutale were left in the hotel they were staying in Kilimani. Because when they were going to Riverside where they were abducted, they did not carry their passports with them. So they were left in their hotel. At the border, their abductors did not have any documents. So they went back to Uganda undocumented and without any stamping of any document at the border. So literally they were trafficked, which means that they could have been disappeared even forever had it not leaked with the military intelligence to the family of Dr. Besigye that they were in military custody. When his wife, Win Bianyima, tweeted, they were abducted on a Saturday, tweeted that Tuesday morning when she got information that they were in military custody. I believe it is her tweet which went viral that forced the authorities in Uganda to quickly take them before the military court on that Tuesday afternoon. So I am saying that the role of citizens, the youth included, in pushing back excesses of the government is needed and has never been more needed than it is today. Look, other acts of the state in Kenya, attacking, killing and maiming unarmed protesters, completely forgetting that their right to protest is entrenched in Article 37 of the Constitution. The right to life, right to human dignity, all protected by the Bill of Rights. Yet our police, as we have been shown by the BBC documentary, I'll amend that, our security agencies, because we now know the KDF, sections of the KDF were involved, shooting to kill, not to disable, not stopping the demonstration if there was need to stop it peacefully, but aiming to kill, executing Kenyans, and especially our youth, our Gen Z, with our hard-earned taxes. The tools we provide them to defend us, they have now abused them to murder and maim the hope of the nation. The youth in any country, in any home, are the hope of that home, killing our hope.
And one of the consequences of seeing the military involvement, the conduct of the police, the political classes, and all these sort of levers of power is that, and a bit just getting back to that term, a rogue state. One of the consequences of it has been the erosion of trust between citizens and the powers, the leaders or the politicians. And one of the ways we see this is even the sentiments online in terms of what's happening in that space. I mean, we've always had sort of a polarized, this kind of polarization from time to time, but we seem to have hit a new low. Your work bridges between citizens and the political classes, especially the activism and advocacy work. How do you fancy this is going to shape up?
I think that advocacy is a tool for pushing back, and we have different spaces where we can practice our advocacy. Expressing loudly, issuing statement is one way of pushing back because you are enlightening the public and the world at large of what is happening. And statements are not only pressers. Even the expression of the Gen Z on the digital space and of other Kenyans on what is happening is a way of pushing back. Pressers are a way of pushing back. Coming together is a way of pushing back. Court activism is a way of both educating and pushing back because any activism informs and helps to push back. That is why you have seen me in the court space, both in Kenya, in Uganda, and lately in Tanzania. Because our going there helps to raise the profile of the matter and to make more people get drawn to what is happening. And rogue states would rather that they violated the rights of citizens in the dark and it remained within their jurisdiction. And they hate any act that puts that on the international stage. And you find that my incursions into Uganda, into Tanzania, along with others, elicited negative sentiments from the state or its backers. And in Tanzania, it elicited even a statement from the deputy national leader of the ruling party. And for me, I said, well, that's a message that the message was heard. So I would want to encourage Kenyans, and especially the Gen Z, that revolutions the world over, the engine of revolution to transform positively the society has always been its Gen Z. Even when we were fighting for a return to political pluralism or multiparty in the 90s, yes, the leadership was varied. There was political leadership, there was leadership in the law society, but those who came to give the real push, and they're the ones who suffer most, are the young. Even those days, a majority of those killed were the young. You can see in the Gen Z protests, so many were killed. Recorded, we say 60-something. But until a full count is taken, we will never know. All those rising numbers in the mortuaries tell us that hundreds may have been killed. They continue to be abducted, tortured. A majority of them Gen Zs, because there are some who are abducted and tortured who are middle-aged, but a majority are Gen Zs. Some for as little as just have, creating satire online. We have people at the top with very fragile egos. I want to say yes, I also do get irritated by comments online. But the best you can do is to respond to them. If you're completely pissed off, you can use the B button and block, but you cannot murder. You cannot torture people. You cannot abuse state power just because somebody rubbed you the wrong way. We have a duty to hold hands together internally and also to hold hands within the Jumuiya so that we push back excesses, because these excesses are all over East Africa and in many countries in Africa and in the world. There is a recession of democracy in many countries of the world at the moment. Yeah.
What's interesting is what Gen Zs did in the country, and in a sense, what was your posture when you watched these young people go to the streets? Did it echo back to the moments young people were in the streets in the 90s and in the 80s?
It did. Yeah. It reminded me of those days, but to say the truth, this surpassed anything I have seen. This is the digital age. These people mobilized silently. We did not expect. Many people didn't. We knew there was wide-ranging discontent, but mobilization of an entire country, 37 counties, and not a handful of people. We've had demonstrations before. The most may be hundreds. These were thousands, a sea of humanity, and holding national flag, white handkerchiefs, peaceful, completely peaceful, until the last day when the state introduced goons and violence. I can say without equivocation that what I saw, the Gen Z were peaceful. Those demonstrations were peaceful, they were amazing. It gave me renewed hope that the country is in safe hands, in the hands of our young, who are not young in their resolve, who are not young in their positive thoughts and transformative thoughts about the country. And I dare say that their blood has watered the seed they planted. That time they were saying occupy places, and one of the places they said occupy was Parliament, but also churches. Sure. Religious leaders have come back on their own to say no to doubtful donations, to say no to podiums, church podiums being used as platforms. I'm saying church because it is churches. The Muslims do things differently. You don't see fundraisers, you don't see people talking, people being given a chance other than the preacher who will preach, in the masjid. So churches have come back to say on their own something they knew even before, but those echoes of the calls for accountability are continuing to grow in our minds. And those echoes of accountability will actually deliver this nation.
Just switching gears a bit, what was your big why for putting together the biography Against the Tide? And has been the reception so far among your supporters, among the Gen Zs, among the civic actors, among some of the political players?
As Africans, we are storytellers. We grew up with our grandmothers, our parents, and the people around telling us stories. I tell stories, I've told stories to my children, to my nieces, nephews, and now to my grandchildren. So writing a memoir is storytelling, telling my story. And in this day and age, we've moved from oral tradition to putting things in pen and paper. That way you share with many more, and you share with more generations. Your voice will be there, not somebody else talking about you. So I had been harboring the desire to write my story. And I started, the thoughts came immediately after my unsuccessful presidential run in 2012, but I didn't get to sitting down to writing immediately. I started much later, maybe 4 or 5 years later. And because we sometimes in our minds think that you have to be a writer to write. So I did not immediately think I'll do it myself. The journey went in a rugged way, looking for surrogate writer, one who is from out of the country who had been referred by a friend, an American friend for whom they had done their biography, and then a local person to match them. But at the end of the day, I did not hear my voice. So eventually, I had to get further help from yet another local, and then to also sit down and go through every chapter to make it my book. And I was able to do that when my mind frame realized I'm storytelling, and I can tell my story in pen and paper, but I can tell it as though I'm talking to you. So my story is passing on the stories we tell as Africans. And why do we tell stories? We tell stories so that people may know about us, may learn from where we have succeeded, and may avoid the mistakes that we may have done. So that is what inspired me to write the long, rugged journey. So it finished and launched last year. So it's not that I chose what period to launch. It's just when we finished in that long and rugged journey.
Yeah, I think it's a critical contribution to this political moment, but also situating it within history, given especially that the young people are they're still standing up to the questions that they asked last year. And given that we are about a few weeks away from literally the anniversary of that, and how the interesting anecdotes and snippets that you put in there speak into what they're doing right now, because a big part of what we do also is trying to help the young people understand that Honorable Martha Karua was here before you. She was out in the streets, she agitated, they were able to achieve this and that in the streets. So there is a path to this, there's a journey, and your elders are also there before you. So you're building on on the work they've done over decades. And in a sense, I think that's a big part of you telling your story.
I think so too, because we also hear stories of those who were there before us. We all hear stories of freedom fighters. You hear stories of a different generation. And I think the point that is made by all those stories is that the work of each generation is cut out for them. The work of building, liberating the country from negative forces is not a work that is done in one day. It's ongoing. And because there will always be people who are trying to push us to where we came from, it is an ongoing project, which every generation has to do their work. I am saddened that we seem to be regressing to where we were when I started activism as a young person. To have people killed by the state, executed deliberately. To have demonstrations stopped. To have services destroyed or diminished the way they have diminished, health services, education, and all. To have grand theft and corruption, and to have impunity at the level we are having. It's terrible. And it means the Gen Z of today have work that is even harder, maybe, than our times, because we are disobeying a constitution that says it in black and white. But I'm glad because Kenyans are not taking it lying down. And this is not just the work of Gen Zs. I say they are the engine of the revolution. It means everybody. Generation zote. Everybody in Kenya, this is our call. We must together work to change things. We cannot be complainers, we must be actors. And after all, the Constitution places the responsibility on each one of us to uphold and defend the Constitution. and sovereignty belongs to citizens. We must defend it and refuse to grow or feed an emerging dictator. We must say no to that. And I keep on saying that we are seeing as though the leaders that be, and especially Dr. Ruto, is in a hurry to graduate to a dictator. We must stop that graduation. We must push back and get our constitution obeyed. So I want to say, you asked about the uptake of the book. It is doing well. It's being received well. These are hard economic times, especially the youth. Not everybody is able to afford what is being, what the book is going for. 2,500 for paperback, and slightly more for the hard copy. So we are exploring ways. How can we get the book to circulate more? Is it perhaps looking for avenues where for the young, we can do it differently? We are looking at all that, because one writes a book so that it is read, not for the shelves. So we, together with the Pambasuko Foundation, which is doing the marketing, we will be finding ways and announcing them of how to partner, especially with the youth, to get the book more accessible.
Yeah. Speaking of the youth, intergenerational solidarity involves also mentorship, and which is vital for sustaining these movements. What do you see as the role of mentorship in the political space? And do we have frameworks and infrastructure for that, especially now that a lot of these Gen Zs are getting into this political awakening and they're trying to find a pipeline and a platform for expression?
Yeah, there is maybe not formal structures, but each person, each leader has a duty to mentor, because we too were mentored. And mentorship does not only come formally, it's by what we do and by sharing our stories. I believe by writing my memoirs, and those who have written, is a tool for mentorship. What we do every day is a tool, is also mentors others, especially in this day of information, those who hear and see you doing things. That doesn't mean that everything we do is 100% worthy of emulation, but we believe those seeing, including the young, are able to differentiate and connect with what they can replicate and discard what they cannot replicate. So I would say by my work, I am mentoring, and many other leaders are doing the same. But for myself, through the Martha Karua Foundation, we are developing formal mentorship, where for a certain period within a year, we are able to avail opportunity, both physical and online, to answer questions of those who are starting the journey of leadership, to interact in a way that can be beneficial, because lots of people have questions about this and that. Yeah.
Yeah, and by extension, what is the space of People's Liberation Party in that framework also?
The People Liberation Party, our youth, and we have a youth league, and all the candidates who come in, a majority of whom are young people, we have that space also for interacting and mentorship. So 2 forums, one within PRP and one within the Martha Karua Foundation, and also seeking collaboration with others.
What do you see as the gaps in terms of our mentorship framework within the activism, advocacy, and political spaces?
I think sometimes because we are disjointed, all the players each acting in their space, I think there is need to have a consortium that, from where I see it, I would rather it's led by those who are not in politics, the civil society part that is not in politics, so that it's truly non-partisan, a platform where we agree on the key values. And by the way, we are not agreeing on them, they are already in the Constitution. It's just developing a template, which then is used as a tool for civic engagement. Because we need this civic engagement. and in particular, the hurdles I see for youth entering leadership and for value-based leadership across the generation is the culture of worship of money, where transactional politics is embraced more than value-based leadership. We need to have this conversation. What is the role of money in politics? Should we expect handouts? And I keep saying, for myself, that people should see political leaders who are seeking to be elected and political parties as platforms for transformation. So when you come to a political party, you are joining a movement, or in Swahili, mradi wa kuimarisha uongozi bora. So you are joining a Project Kenya, to make governance better. And in this country, because we are used to the Harambee spirit and pulling together for projects, from electricity to water projects to build sections of the road that are impassable and the authorities have neglected, we already know how to contribute. We contribute money. Those who don't have money give in kind. They may come to level the place or to bring the stones. Nobody goes to a project thinking that the project will either give them lunch or money. It is them who take their effort, their money, their know-how to the project. And if we look at it that way, then members of the party and its supporters and the general public will not expect money from PLP. They will know that the wealth of PLP is their contributions and their membership fees. And they will come to contribute to PLP and to its worthy candidates to make Kenyan's governance better, and to any other political party. In countries where the democracy is more entrenched and the culture of knowing that it is a civic duty to seek for better leadership for your country, people contribute to parties. That is the culture we must build. We are not late. We are more than 1 year to the next general election. I would like to see a common agreement and a platform of all the players together, led, as I said, by civil society, so that who are not politicians, so that we can agree that in this election we are going for value-based leadership. People we believe can transform, people with a track record. These are the values we should look for. These are the things we want to see in political party manifestos, so that as Kenyans we move forward together. I want to recall 2002, when KANU was dislodged from power after remaining in power for over 40 years, and when Kenyans' minds met. And the word you'd hear on the streets, in the shags and every nook and cranny in Kenya is that this time we must have change. And every Kenyan or majority became agents of change, positive change. So that even that polling officer, that polling clerk, was an agent of change, safeguarding transparency of the ballot. We need to reach that point where everybody safeguards the integrity, not just of the ballot, but of systems, where that police officer safeguards the rights of Kenyans and does the policing duties in accordance with his mandate, where that doctor is treating people the way they should be treated. The civic engagement should be broad, so that as we go to the next general elections, we really are moving for transformation. And when worthy leaders are elected, as Kenyans, we hit the ground running. And where the population itself is transformed and is not expecting money from leaders, but service. Where the population are ready to hold leaders to account. Today, lies have become a way of life. Even in social media, it's not just leaders who are lying and spewing falsehoods deliberately. It is also us as citizens. I would want to see a shift from that, because our values as Africans, which are the values we have imported to our constitution in Article 10, are the values of integrity, respect for others and their property. It is the values of community, supporting one another. It is the values of inclusiveness and of sharing. It is values of mutual respect. Though that is what I would want us to see us return to. When I grew up, those are the values. The value of hard work, everybody contributing to the family, to the community. And our largest family is Kenya, to which we all belong. That's our largest home. We start from your family unit to your community, to your area, and we spill over to the larger family, Kenya. I would want us to see us return to that value, where we want to support and help each other, not destroy each other, and where we are inclusive. And that would be the values that we give to our youth, to our children, to the society, and the values we reinforce.
I'm looking at June 25th. It's about 7 weeks away. A very pivotal moment, and there's a lot of questions in terms of trying to understand how do we tentatively make sense of that moment in light of this anniversary, and what message would you have for these young people out there?
Is that don't give up. There is hope. And like I said, the seeds you planted were watered with blood on June 25, and they're germinating, just like I've said. There's a move towards accountability in this country. Even those who have not been accountable before are now trying to move towards accountability. But accountability is not something that comes like baptism. It has to be a culture practiced. So we still need Kenyans held to account on a daily basis. We still need leadership. We need to hold each other to account. And as we move to the next general elections, we need to do that in a more concerted way. And I would like to tell the Gen Z that when the state attacked them, the rogue state attacked them on June 25, they had hoped to cover them and to disperse them forever. We have seen they are still active. Although the atrocities continue, the resolve is there. I would call on us, all generations, and especially my generation, because I feel we let the youth down on 25th, when the blood of our children was spilled on the streets of Kenya. That blood was crying out to all Kenyans. We should have rallied together and come out the next day, because you cannot sit in your house when your child is screaming outside and is being attacked. You would go to defend. We heard as Kenyans, the Gen Z screaming outside this house we call Kenya, within the compound. We never came out of our comfort zone. I'm now calling on each one of us to take this Project Kenya, of making Kenya a nation where each one of us can prosper, a nation that works for everybody, not for a clique of ruling elite, a nation that is governed with its operational manual, and the operational manual for a corporation called Kenya is the Constitution of Kenya. And when I talk of the Constitution, it means the laws, all the laws made under it. It is our sacred duty, civic duty, and our constitutional duty to join hands and make sure that Kenya proceeds. As we celebrate June 25, as we commemorate, because we are not celebrating the massacre, but we are celebrating the togetherness of Kenyans in seeking accountability and change. This is what we must bear in mind, that we all have a duty and that we have to have innovative ways of ensuring that we succeed. We can be dispersed on the streets. It's very difficult to disperse Kenyans on the digital space. And in Kenya, unlike other countries, I do not see the state being able to clamp down or to switch off the internet. Banks need internet. Business needs internet. In Kenya, we are more digital than many countries. And I'm told on the digital space, we may very well be the leading nation in the world. It is not possible to shut down Kenya. You'd have to shut internet. You'd have to shut down the country itself. So let us step up on all forums, and especially on the forums where we cannot be dispersed. And let us stand up for each other. And I want to commend the online community because they stand up when anyone of Kenyans, not just those on the digital space, is touched. You remember how they stood up for Maria Sarungi, and the rendition became a cropper. How they have stood up days on end for people like Bob Jagi, for Bernard Kabuli, for Billy Mwangi, for all those who have been abducted. To that extent, I would say, because the digital space is occupied by more youth than any other, thank you very much, our youth. Thank you very much, Kenyans, on the online community. Let us continue with this spirit. And when we continue with this solidarity, it's picked by others around the world. So our solidarity must continue to grow. And this is the solidarity that will deliver Kenya.
Okay. In terms of activism, in terms of advocacy, and in terms of politics, what next for Honorable Martha Karua?
Martha Karua is in the marketplace as a product. I've already said that I'm interested in the job of CEO of a corporation called Kenya, to manage it in accordance with the law, to make it inclusive, and to ensure that we have a just economy that brings all Kenyans on board, that prioritizes the critical needs of Kenyans and not the comfort of the ruling elite, that respects the rights of Kenyans, that creates an enabling environment for all Kenyans to prosper, that respects Article 43, that calls on the state, obligates the state to ensure that Kenyans enjoy basic rights, that respects your property and stops land grabbing, that unclogs all the systems so that our justice system works, our security system works, the economy works for everybody, our health and education sectors, and even agriculture works. If all are working, they will generate jobs, and we will not have to export hundreds, thousands of our youth to do, educated youth, to do menial jobs abroad, while this country is crying for their expertise in order to build Kenya. No nation can prosper without its manpower. We need Kenyans to build Kenya, and it beats logic to get busy exporting without doing anything to create an enabling environment for industries to thrive, for the private sector to thrive, for the Jua Kali. The greatest investor in Kenya is the Jua Kali cumulatively. If we make it thrive, there will be jobs. If we make industry thrive, there will be jobs. Agriculture and agribusiness, there will be jobs. If we invest in education, there will be more jobs. We invest in universal health, there will be jobs. So this is our time to transform and I'm offering myself for that role. And I have extensive experience for it. Yes, we are uniting as the opposition, but while we unite, I also have a duty to grow PLP and grow the Martha Karua brand so that we are able to compete with the others, healthy competition within the House, and so that I'm able to emerge as that candidate. So Martha Karua is there very busy doing all those things and also helping unite the opposition, but always knowing that Kenya is greater than my ambition. That should, after all that, Kenyans decide it's somebody else, I'll definitely give way to let Kenya thrive. But I'm going to work hard, you know? Nobody starts a race to lose. You start a race to win. I'm in this race seriously, and I'll continue convincing all people and the Gen Z who are a majority, not only to take their voters card, but to also hear my story and agree with me that I have what it takes to drive this nation. Yeah.
Honorable Martha Karua, always a pleasure.
Thank you.